Schultz. Oh, Schultz is hammering done.
When you get hit by a Dave Schultz right, he's going to break your bones.
That can be uplifting to a team.
His mouth would twitch and his eyes would get big.
Schultz continues to flail away with the right hand.
It was like a lion going into the den, and there was the red piece of meat.
Schultz trying to get him at long range. Schultz is now going to the midsection.
But, the only way I ever wanted to be was if some guy is going to try and intimidate our team, I was going to stand up for him. And
win or lose.
Win or lose. And that's, I used to say too, if I ever got beat, I would come back and fight him again. But I don't hold no grudges.
He took on all of the players on all of the teams that used to beat us up and beat them up.
So he can start pumping the uppercut. Now the right's free, and now he's getting the better of it.
There's been a couple fights, and I guess the ones that are most publicized are the ones, was one with Larry Robinson and one with Clark Gillies. And the thing is, I was not physically hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I suppose I might have had a couple lumps, but I've had twice the bruises, and I don't think in any fisticuffs there's anything serious going to happen.
Dave the Hammer Schultz, one man, 472 penalty minutes in a single season. That number is more than the total penalty minutes of entire modern NHL teams combined. He played for Philadelphia Flyers through the most violent era the league had ever seen, and his name alone was enough to change the way opponents played the game. But who was this man, really? Bobby Hull, one of the greatest players in NHL history, summed it up in just a few words. Everybody knows Dave Schultz is nuts. So what exactly made him so terrifying? Let's find out. Before we get into the stories, let's talk about the numbers. Because with Dave Schultz, the statistics alone are enough to make your jaw drop. In the 1974 to 1975 season, Schultz accumulated 472 penalty minutes. That is a record that has never been broken in NHL history. To put that into perspective, in the 2023 season, the Vegas Golden Knights finished with 463 penalty minutes, and the New York Islanders with 469. Those are the totals of 20 players skating a full season. Dave Schultz beat both of them alone. Over his 9-year career across 535 games, he racked up 2,294 career penalty minutes, averaging more than 4 penalty minutes every single game he played. Historians estimate he was involved in over 300 fights throughout his professional career. Phil Esposito, the legendary scorer of the Boston Bruins, spoke about what those numbers actually meant on the ice. I was not ready for some of those games. I have to take a lot of the blame for Boston's failure myself. He made clear that the presence of enforcers like Schultz made the skilled Bruins players think twice every time they touched the puck. It is May 5th, 1974. Game 7 of the Stanley Cup semifinal between the Philadelphia Flyers and the New York Rangers. One game to decide who moves on. Everything is on the line. That night, Dave Schultz stepped onto the ice and delivered what many witnesses would later describe not as a fight, but as a public execution. His opponent was Dale Rolfe, a steady, reliable defenseman for the Rangers. Rolfe was no pushover, but he was not a professional fighter. Schultz was something else entirely. Using his signature grab and punch technique, Schultz locked Rolfe's collar with his left hand, pinning him in place and cutting off his ability to defend himself. Then he threw punch after punch directly into Rolfe's face and head. When Rolfe went down, Schultz pulled him back up and kept going. The ice turned red. What made this moment truly terrifying was not just what Schultz did, it was what no one else did. Not a single Rangers player stepped in to help their teammate. The fear of triggering a full Flyers riot was simply too great. Millions of television viewers watched in stunned silence. It was a cultural shock that changed how North America saw hockey. Dale Rolfe later reflected on the moment. He was like a wild animal let loose. No mercy, no stopping. At that point, you just felt like you were facing death. Schultz himself admitted that he treated fighting on the ice as a discipline to be mastered. He studied how to maintain balance on skates by gripping his opponent's jersey as an anchor point, turning every fight into a controlled environment where he held all the advantages. He wore tape-wrapped gloves to protect his own hands while maximizing the damage delivered to his opponent, a technique so effective that the NHL eventually banned it. But perhaps the most chilling detail was his pre-game routine. Before each match, Schultz would lie alone in a dark room and fight the entire battle inside his head. He would visualize exactly which opponent he would target that night, how he would approach them, and precisely how he would take them apart. By the time the puck dropped, the fight was already over in his mind. Schultz himself once drew a line that revealed everything about his mindset. "I never wanted to permanently injure anyone. I just wanted to hit them until they didn't want to play hockey that night anymore. That is the difference." Legendary goaltender Ken Dryden captured the broader picture in his celebrated book, The Game. He described the mid-1970s as the dark age of hockey, a period where violence had been refined into a sophisticated art. For Dryden, Schultz was not simply a dangerous player. He was a symptom of a sport that had lost its way. If there was one night that captured everything Dave Schultz was, it was April 22nd, 1976, at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, Canada. The Philadelphia Flyers were facing the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 6 of the playoffs. Toronto was leading the series, and the atmosphere inside the arena was electric with hostility toward the Flyers. Schultz walked into that building and treated it like any other night. It started with an elbow on Brian Glennie, which ignited a brawl with Scott Garland. The two men threw punches over the heads of referees who were desperately trying to separate them. Then came the moment that defined the evening. Schultz locked eyes with Dave "Tiger" Williams, one of the most feared fighters in the league. The two collided in a battle so prolonged and exhausting that both men were visibly drained by the time officials finally pulled them apart. When Schultz was escorted off the ice, in front of an arena packed with hostile Toronto fans, he raised his finger and challenged the entire crowd without a single moment of hesitation. His penalty total for that one night? 42 minutes. A playoff record that has never been matched. Tiger Williams reflected on it years later. "He was crazy in a way you could never predict. In that game, we were not playing hockey. We were trying to survive Schultz's rampage." The Toronto press was equally blunt in 1976. 42 penalty minutes from Dave Schultz is not just a number. It is an insult to the spirit of sport. He turned the arena into a Roman Colosseum. In January 1976, the Central Red Army team from the Soviet Union arrived in North America for a historic exhibition series. These were not ordinary players. They were the finest hockey minds in the world, combining flawless technique, extraordinary fitness, and a level of tactical sophistication that had humbled teams across Europe and Canada. Then they arrived in Philadelphia. Bill Clement, a forward for the Flyers at the time, recalled that before the game even started, the Soviet players were already consumed by one question. A former teammate who spoke Russian overheard them asking each other with visible anxiety, "How big is Schultz? Is he really a killer on the ice?" That fear translated directly onto the ice. The Soviets, renowned for their flowing, aggressive offensive play, became hesitant. They avoided the dangerous areas of the rink where Schultz patrolled. Their trademark combinations broke down under the psychological weight of his presence. At one point, as the physical play intensified, the Soviet team walked off the ice and retreated to their locker room in protest. Bill Clement reflected on it in 2014. The Russians were beaten psychologically before they even set foot in Philadelphia. Dave did not need to punch all of them. His mere existence was already a weapon. Soviet star Valery Kharlamov, reflecting on the experience, said, "They played a kind of hockey we had never seen before. It was full of physical intimidation rather than skill." Everyone knew Dave Schultz could fight. What they did not expect was that he could also score. In the 1973 to 1974 season, while leading the entire NHL in penalty minutes, Schultz quietly put together one of the most surprising offensive performances an enforcer had ever produced. He scored 20 goals that season, a number that many dedicated forwards would have been proud to call their own. Within a single week, he scored 2 hat tricks, 3 goals in each game. But the moment that silenced every remaining doubter came in the quarterfinals against the Atlanta Flames. With the series on the line, Schultz scored the deciding goal in overtime, sending the Flyers straight to the Stanley Cup Finals and ultimately their first championship. Head coach Fred Shiro did not hide his admiration. Everyone thinks Dave only knows how to fight, but he has very skillful hands. He is a real hockey player, and that is what makes him truly dangerous. The NHL eventually overhauled its rulebook, introducing stricter regulations specifically designed to prevent another Schultz from dominating the game the way he did. That alone tells you everything about the scale of his impact. If Schultz were playing in today's NHL, what suspensions and bans do you think he would face? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support our channel. Thank you so much.